Commands and Colors Medieval. Yes, we have another incarnation of the Commands and Colors system. We have another big box chock full of cardboard and wooden blocks. Commands and Colors is a system that I like very much. It works in a lot of contexts. Recently I played a sci-fi Commands and Colors game, battles in open space. To me that system really does not work with that theme, but it works with historical situations, with land battles, in which you have situations in which a commander only has a limited ability of figuring out what's happening, of influencing troops, in which you're gonna have problems in the chain of command. People that you would like to do something are not gonna do it, etc, etc, etc. It is a card-driven system that limits the agency of the player to mirror the limited agency of the commanders. It worked well in Napoleonic times, it worked well with ancient battles, and now we have the Middle Ages. By the way, the first thing I realized when I started looking at the component, I was like, oh, the Middle Ages are so long. Now, at a rational level, I know that I can do the math, Renaissance minus Roman Empire. But when I think about the Middle Ages, I always think about the 10th to the 14th century, more or less. But it's much longer than that. And so actually here we have battles from the times of the Byzantine Empire, from the clashes of the Byzantine Empire against the Sassanids. But there is, of course, some ambiguity there, because the events depicted in Commands and Colors Medieval, the base set, are basically the same ones that we have in Cataphract by GMT, which belongs to their ancient battles system. So, well, you say potato, I say Belisarius, so there is a little bit of ambiguity there. And so we can say that the base set, it's about the early Middle Ages, which is also good. That means we got a lot of possibility to expand here. We're gonna have a set per century. It's gonna be, well, a lot of fun, because the Commands and Colors system is a fun one, and I can tell you already it works very well with this early Middle Ages slash ancient, late ancient theme. Let me show you how the game works. This is the board of the game. It is a mounted board. It is a blank board, and you will add terrain feature using these double-sided tiles depending on the instructions that you find in the scenario. This is how the board may look like at the beginning of the game. In fact, this is the setup for the Battle of Callinicum first phase. There are multiple scenarios for several of the battles, sometimes representing different phases of the battle, sometimes representing different areas of the battle. The board is divided into 3 areas as indicated by those dotted lines, and so in that it follows the same mechanism of other Commands and Colors games, in which you will use cards to activate different areas of the battlefield. The game is played using these wooden blocks that you place on the board, standing up, and they represent military units. However, they are double-sided, meaning they have the same sticker on both sides, so there is no fog of war. But that also means twice the pain when it comes to applying stickers to your brand new game, so that you can actually turn those wooden blocks into military units. We have the Sassanids represented by those mustard colored blocks, and then we had the Byzantines represented by these purple blocks. The type of units indicated on the block is represented by a symbol in the top right corner of each block. Say circles, green circles represent light units, then we have red squares, they represent heavy, and then we have triangles, blue triangles, they represent medium. Within each range, within each band, the symbol may also have a white border surrounding it, and that pretty much represents a better unit within that range. Say, if you have just a triangle, that means medium. If you have a triangle surrounded by a white edge, that means warrior. If you have a white edge surrounding a red square, that means super heavy cataphract cavalry. Leaders, they may be attached to a unit or they may act independently, and then maybe you move them around and you will want them to lead units. Also, you see these counters here. There are units that may or may not have a range capabilities. Say, for example, these in some scenarios will act just as heavy cavalry. Some of the times they will have a bow. In this case, based on the scenario instructions, you will add a marker to indicate that capability. So this is how the battlefield may look like a start, and then, well, you're ready to play, you're ready to go. Like in other games in the commands and color system, action is card driven. That is, there is a shared deck of cards. Each player will have a hand of cards. And the basic idea is that each turn, when it is your turn, you will play a card, do what it says, which usually means you order, that is, you activate troops, you will move your troops, and then you will use them to attack. Some troops will attack with range attacks, some troops will attack in melee, and that's pretty much the general idea. Then you will draw a card to replenish your hand, and players alternate doing that until one of the players has completed the objectives of the scenario, which usually means to collect a number of banners. You will collect banners by eliminating enemy units, and also in some scenarios by completing specific objectives. Units, as we said, are represented by those wooden blocks. So when a unit takes a hit, you indicate that by removing one of the blocks. When all of the blocks in a unit are removed, the unit is eliminated and the opponent just gained a banner. Good for them. I wanted you to have a look also at the blocks of the other side, the Sassanids. Now, we said you play cards to activate units. Some cards will indicate the units and activate based on the location of the unit on the board. Say this card here will tell you order 2 units in the center. So we are in the central area. If a unit is sitting on a hex which is between 2 areas, it belongs to both areas. So it could be activated, say, for example, by a card that activates units in the center, or a card that activates units on that side. So these are pretty self-explanatory. Some other cards have to do with the type of unit. This card will allow you to activate light troops, so with a green dot symbol, again, units in a specific location. And then other cards have slightly more convoluted explanations. You simply read the instructions and do what they say. They'll tell you which units you can activate and what you can do with them. Some may be related to what the opponent does. We even have cards that can be played out of turn, so as a reaction to the opponent. And then we have leadership actions. Now, you can use the card to do what it says, but leadership actions also trigger the most innovative mechanic that we have in this set that differentiates Commands and Color Medieval from previous sets in the system. Leadership actions may trigger inspired actions. That is, based on the scenario instructions, you will receive a number of inspired action tokens. These are those tokens. When you play a leadership action, you can spend one of your tokens to activate an inspired leadership action. There's this player aid here, which is double-sided, giving different options for the 2 sides. When you play a leadership card, you can again spend an inspired leadership token, and then you activate one of these actions. Say, for example, Darken the Sky, that will allow you to fight twice with 1 additional die. Super dangerous. Again, these are self-explanatory. If you want more information, you can pause the video and read the text. These are simply more powerful versions of actions that you would normally take. They're very similar, but not exactly the same. Also, there are battlefield actions that you can take, again, by spending inspired leadership tokens. They are not necessarily related to the play of a leadership card, and they will allow you to move a leader in a pinch to get a battle bonus or to ignore a flag that has been rolled against a unit. So those inspired leadership tokens just give you more flexibility. They give you more things that you can do, but at a cost. There are also actions that you can take to produce extra inspired leadership tokens. So that's cool. I really like that idea. Now, as for the units, when they activate, usually again they will move and or attack. How much they move depends on the type of unit. You have this player right here, double-sided with the units on the two sides. You will make friends with this player rate, which pretty much is very effective because it summarizes 80% of the rules, telling you how much a unit can move, if they fire, what is the range at which they can fire, how many dice they roll, if they can do combat or they must do combat under certain circumstances, how many dice they roll in close combat, and other special abilities, which usually is to ignore certain combat results rolled against them. So you will move units, and suppose that after all is said and done, I just moved this unit here, and then this unit maybe is here, and this unit traveled a long way to get there. So basically, after movement, units can attack. Units that have a range capability may attack with range, so they don't need to be adjacent. They can attack as long as they have a line of sight. And units that attack melee, of course, they have to be adjacent to the opponent. When you attack, you will roll a number of dice. There's a base number of dice that you will roll. That may be modified by cards play, by special effects, but again, idea is you will roll a number of dice. When you attack in range combat, you score a hit if you roll the symbol of the target. That is, this will score a hit when rolled in range against light units. This will score a hit when rolled against the medium units, and this will score a hit when rolled against heavy units. If you roll flags, they will not score hits, but they will force the opponent to retreat a number of spaces unless they are annulled by circumstances such as some unit just can ignore some flags. An attached leader will allow you to ignore a flag. Being supported, that is, being adjacent to friendly units, will annul a flag, and so on and so forth. And this is for range combat. When you do melee combat, you also take into account this symbol here, the leader symbol, which means you score a hit if your unit has an attached leader or is adjacent to a friendly leader. So that really emphasizes the value of leadership, otherwise this is a miss. A sword also will be a hit in melee combat, with a lot of restrictions, because some units do not score hits when they roll swords in combat, when some units do not score hits when they roll swords against other units. That is, some units never use swords in combat, some units use swords in melee combat unless the opponent has a superior armor, a superior stature, things like that. Basically, these are always misses in range combat, might be hits in melee combat. In melee combat also, if the opponent is still there after you attacked them, that is, they have not been annihilated, they have not been forced to retreat, then the opponent may battle back and simply they will roll dice against you and score whatever hits they manage to score. So this is the general idea. When it's your turn, play a card, activate some units, move them, or use them to attack. Roll dice to see how much damage you can inflict, physical damage or retreats. If it's melee combat and the opponent is still there, the opponent may battle back. And this is the general idea. Continue like this until one of the players has completed the objectives of the scenario. So what can I say? It's good. It is a good system. You knew that already, most likely, if you played war games in the last 10 years or so. And this implementation is very good. It felt particularly refreshing to me after the somewhat botched experience with Commands and Colors in space. These are battles that are fun to play, and you have a large range of scenarios, of course. To me, but that's my limitation, the battles felt a little bit abstract simply because I don't know a lot about this period in history. And I even get the sense if I have an overall understanding, I don't know that, oh, well, finally I can see what really happened on the left flank. Ooh, finally I really understand what happened in the late phases of this battle. They're somewhat obscure topics. Even many wargamers are not going to be intimately familiar with them. On one hand, you're an opportunity to learn more about these battles. There are nice notes before each scenario. On the other hand, they probably won't have that emotional appeal that you already have when you're playing a game about Agincourt, about Waterloo or Austerlitz, for example. But that aside, or maybe that is a plus for you, new battles to learn about. This is a strong system as usual, and it's in particular Commands and Colors Medieval is a very welcome implementation because you have very interesting units. These cataphracts that are basically tanks on hooves, they're particularly powerful and interesting, and you have to deal with them. When they clash against you, when you attack them in melee, they can be particularly nasty. And on the other side of the spectrum, you have these very light but very mobile light units that have range capability, and really you have to coordinate those two levels. I like how the leader symbols on the dice, together with elements of the game, really emphasize the physical presence of the commander, both for logistical, tactical purposes, and one can imagine for morale, for inspiration. And I definitely like the extra level of flexibility that you have thanks to the inspired actions here. It's just a welcome addition to the system. I think it really adds to the playability. In retrospect, of course, one wonders, but couldn't this have been also part of other sets like Ancient, Commands and Color Ancients, heck, even some elements in Napoleonics? I don't know, I can't rewind time, but I know that in terms of playability, it is fun to have it here. There were those times where you just wanted to move a leader in other games, and you didn't want to go through all the trouble of spending an entire main action, an entire main order for that one leader. And now I can do it, not without a cost, which makes sense in terms of game design. Everything has to have a cost, but I can do it. In fact, I think you have a really nice balance here between the restrictions that the card play give you, and you want those to really get a sense of the challenges of command back in the day, but at the same time playability that is offered by these other extra actions that you can just spend based on what you think is going to be good for you, and maybe you regret it and maybe not. In any case, what you have here is the nice back and forth, is the nice, tight, exciting action that you have in other Commands and Colors system, married with the opportunity to maybe learn more about a period in history which is not overrepresented in wargaming, and also married with some really fun play options. In general, Commands and Colors Medieval, it's a great game, it's a great new addition in the system, it's a great new chapter of entire line of Commands and Colors games, and I hope there will be more games in this line, because I had a blast playing the scenarios in this game, and I can't wait to play more medieval implementations of the Commands and Colors system.